Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you've been following me for the last couple of weeks, you've probably heard an awful lot about the freedom of the release, the allowing and encouragement of the wrists to allow the club and the hands to move freely through your golf swing. And one of the main problems with this free release is simply the feeling of the loss of control of your swing, the loss of control of your golf club. And of course, the question would be, well, how do I control something which I am releasing? Well, the answer is not quite as difficult as you might think. When you look at what your arms are doing, you are lifting the club into the air, hinging up and rotating it onto plane, then allowing it to continue in that rotation in the downswing, giving you this kind of clockwise rotation in the wrists if you're a right-handed player. This, of course, has boundaries, but these boundaries are being set by your upper arms and shoulders rather than by your wrists. You really can allow your wrists to move the full extension of their range of movement. And once you actually do that, you are going to control their range of movement by the range of movement you allow in your shoulder joints. That doesn't mean that your shoulder joints are going to remain stiff in any way. It simply means that you're going to exert a certain amount of control in what you do with them. The first thing to watch is as you take the club back, you don't want the feeling of the upper arm being stuck to your chest, but at the same time, you don't want it to rotate out so that the elbow is pointing towards the camera in this case. That will obviously increase the rotation of the arms and will get you too flat in your backswing. At the same time, keeping yourself too hinged or close to the body might keep the club out that, but it's likely to mean that you're going to have a very steep shaft in the backswing. Also not something we're looking about. If you've been watching the videos, then you know I'm really looking for the club to reach more or less parallel to the original shaft plane. The reason for that is just simply so I can drop it and know that the club is going to try and get back to the ball of its own volition. So what's actually happening is I am lifting my arms, the lead arm coming up, but the position of my elbow relative to my body is staying neutral. It's not rotating out and it's not rotating under. As I get to the top of the golf swing and my trail elbow really starts to hinge and pull the club across my chest, and my arm will go with it, taking this lead shoulder into internal rotation. And of course, at that point, then the elbow will actually rotate out. And this is perfectly okay. And this is something that you've not only got to allow happen, but you've got to encourage to a certain extent, because this will allow the arms to pull back and get into an extension of your shoulders, ready for the shoulders to start the downswing and influence the arms in the downswing. Once you actually have started the downswing, your lead arm and elbow, shoulder should stay the same for a certain amount of time. As the arm drops back down, you don't have to start rotating the shoulder back out, because as you see, that will change the path of your swing. What you actually want is the feeling that the elbow can stay in its slightly rotated position as you start the downswing, and almost to the point at around about parallel to the ground, when the hips start, or the wrists start to release of their own accord into the back of the ball. And then as your lead shoulder is pulled up, usually this joint will pull back out, it will pull the elbow back into its original position and allow you to square the golf club up onto the golf ball. Doing this too early, as I say, will tend to get the club coming from the outside. But at the same time, allowing the lead shoulder to rotate too far up and back will also have the opposite effect, getting you too far from the inside. So the amount of rotation you're allowing in your lead shoulder is very, very important as far as controlling the path of the golf club and to some extent the angle of the face at impact. Your trail arm obviously also will play a role in this, but not as big a role as your lead arm. As you are picking the club up, hinging and rotating, obviously you will expect your trail elbow to bend and your upper arm to lift away from your body, going into this position that we call the waiter. Obviously, you've not got the elbow pointing directly to the ground because you've got a spine angle, and therefore you will usually find that the lower arm is more or less parallel with the spine, just as a kind of a rule of thumb, not as an absolute must. Once you get into that position, however, as the club is dropping down in its loop behind you, you can see how you've got to allow the elbow to turn down in the downswing. You don't want it moving out for the obvious reason that that's going to throw the club forward. So the rotation of your trail shoulder is going into extension, external rotation in the backswing, and then basically continuing this external rotation for a certain extent at the start of the downswing before coming back down into its original position through impact. Altogether, that sounds maybe a little bit complicated, but if I were to give you a simple drill for this, you would put your lead wrist on top of your trail wrist, simply pick the arms up in front of you while hinging your trail arm and bending your trail wrist back, and then simply dropping the arms on the other side. When you put that into a golf swing, you are rotating at the same time. You see I'll be lifting the arms here, rotating the club onto plane, allowing the arms to carry on up, and then you can see as I go into the downswing, it's kind of rotating the elbow down and letting the arm fall before it extends through the ball. And here you can see how the lead shoulder has gone back into its original position before then going itself into external rotation through the ball and into the follow-through. Control in a golf swing is a really strange thing. We want to control, but we want a free and fast-moving golf club. And this is where it's very difficult to know what is generally controlling the golf swing. What it shouldn't be is your wrists. You don't want to get too much conscious control and blocking of the wrist movement. But by limiting the amount of movement that you allow in your shoulder joints, you will be able to limit the rotation of your upper arm and then indirectly limit the amount of rotation which is possible in your lower arm and in your wrists. And by doing that, suddenly you are controlling the uncontrollable. You can accelerate the golf club through the ball without the feeling that your hands and your wrists are controlling the golf club, and still be certain of a flush impact. Yeah, at impact. Hope this helps you. If it does, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Don't forget you can become a patron to the channel by clicking the link below. A big thank you to all of the patrons this season for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it very, very much. I'll be back very soon with the next one. Until then, have a good week.